I want to bring to stage a serial entrepreneur, someone who has really covered the waterfront of innovation in technology, Bill Nguyen, whose most recent company has made lots and lots of headlines for all sorts of reasons. It launched with $41 million in financing before it even hit the market, which was unusual and got a lot of commentary. It got more hype than possibly anything except something perhaps Steve Jobs had done recently. It was an application called Color. How many of you have heard of it? Okay, good, about half of you. The other half of you, and those of you who have heard about it, I'm probably going to start with Bill by asking him to explain what it is and then where it might go. So, Bill, please join me. Welcome. Seems like one of the themes we've had this morning is Steve Jobs, who's someone who you know pretty well. You sold your last company, Lala, to Steve.
Steve's awesome.
I don't know Steve, but I can only take your word for that. You worked with him for a year and a half or so, I guess.
Less than a year.
Oh, less than a year. But somehow he seems to continually call you for advice. Was he calling you for advice about integrating Twitter by any chance?
I have no comment. You know, it's an amazing place. I mean, Apple is, of all the places I've ever been in my life, it's the most amazing place.
Well, we'll get to that later. First of all, I want you to explain to us what Color is.
Well, Color is today is a very simple application. It's a free application for Android and iPhones. And what it does is it allows you to take pictures with other cameras. So instead of having to create a network, the devices kind of sense where the other devices are. And it uses proximity, uses location, uses sound, uses light. What it's trying to do in our first iteration of our technology is to find out this concept of proximity, which is it's not interesting to know where your GPS location is. It's interesting to know who you're with. And by the way, when we talk more about marketing, it impacts a lot of things we do. When I'm with my kids, it's very different how I purchase and buy things versus when I'm with my spouse or with my coworkers. And so we built this technology to try to find out who you're with.
Now, do you think we're ready for that?
You know, it's funny. I remember like my first startup, we did unified messaging and no one figured out, why would you do this? And of course, now it's normal. It's on every phone. And we did Lala 5 years ago, and yesterday Apple launched iCloud. So I don't know, maybe I'm early again. Who knows?
So, okay, fast forward us.
Yeah.
Get us into the future where the idea of proximity and social networks that sort of pop up instantly based on, for example, not everybody here in this room knows each other.
Perfect example.
And we've fooled around. I mean, I've been in this conference business for 15 years, and we've gone to the point where sometimes badges have RFID, and if you swipe them at each other, they tell you who each other is. I've never quite got that because the name is there.
Yep. It's kind of weird. That's like one day like installing diskettes. What's the point of that?
Yeah, right. It's like SneakerNet for conferences. But you know, help us understand what happens when you have these sort of instantaneous proximity-based social networks as opposed to the way we understand social networks right now, which is you set up your social graph and then you sort of manicure it like, you know, like a bush.
Yeah.
You know, you snip here and it grows over there, but it is basically a thing and that's it.
Yep.
Right?
It's a list.
Right.
You know, I think today, by the way, everything that we do eventually, we kind of build everything in blocks. So the first thing we tried to do was to find out, is it possible for two phones to be able to identify each other within a very close proximity? And we figured out we can do it, which is awesome. The next thing that we have to do is apply that technology to a graph. And that graph is going to be Facebook. Facebook is our operating system.
And you didn't launch with that?
Nope, we didn't.
Yeah. Was that a mistake?
No, because I think you're testing technology. I think a lot of people, and I think it's our fault, I think people perceived that what we had launched was what we were going to be. And this is just the first of, I don't know, 20, 30 different releases of our product. And there'll be different versions that will do different things. But the next one will basically start applying graph data. And so the reason that's important, and we talked about this implicit social network, is that if I have a Facebook list and it's 150, 300, 500 people, it doesn't make sense because every single one of them has the same access to all the same information. So everyone sees my kids' photos, everyone sees my job comments and all these other things. It seems kind of weird. And in real life, it's not that way. You're different at this conference versus when you're at the office. You're different there versus at home. You're different there when you go to a bar. And so our premise is that wherever you're at, we should be able to take that information and create a network to be able to share information. And by the way, it's more for recall than it is to share information right when you're there. So for example, I want to say thank you to the people I had a dinner with last week. And I don't know most of their contacts, but I should be able to recall it because we were all there. And so we're building this type of technology, and it has a really profound impact on marketing and advertising, because our perspective is that once you can know who the people are there and where they're located and what they're intending to do, we're going to move advertising to a world much more like where Google is today, which is it's all relevant, it's not guessing, it's explicit information driven by implicit groups. That's the mission.
So let me bring, because you're kind of blowing my mind a little bit. So let's go back to this concept, because for me, I forget almost everything. And I bet everyone in this room has a story of like shaking my hand and saying, hey, wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
And like, this is me, right? But if I had a augmented, right, if I had color, maybe 15 generations or 2 generations from now, how do I remember, oh, that's where we had dinner 2 weeks ago and there were 8 people at the table and you were one of them and there were these other 6 people besides me, and these are the things that they allowed me to know about them because of the context of that dinner. I mean, that's a lot of instrumentation and nuance. How does that get into my head so quickly? Am I staring at my phone and that's up on the app? Or can, like, well, I mean, walk me through how that works.
Well, let's step back and say what a phone really is these days. It's about 28 different sensors, and if Apple does this job really well, it's going to be 38 sensors here pretty soon. That's a huge amount of information that's being captured on this device. So it doesn't always have to be a picture or a comment or text. The fact that the 2 phones were close to each other. Remember, we don't think of them as individuals, we just think of them as UDIDs, basically unique identifiers on the phones. So it says these 2 phones were together. So what happens is the next time you pull up the application, it tells you these are the times that you met with this person, and this is where you were there. Because it has all this information from the web. It pulls it up available for you. By the way, you don't have to do it right when you're in front of someone. You can do it ahead of time. I'm going to be at this conference and click on it. It says, well, here's all the people who are going. And by the way, here's all the reasons why you know them. They're a friend of a friend. They're a coworker. This is the times that you've met them. All this information will be displayed. And so our premise is that it's just not just when you're together. It's basically providing kind of like a search algorithm on top of Facebook is the way we think about it.
It's like a social history.
It is. And it helps you beyond things like that. So for example, if I want to go to Disneyland, and I'm in Palo Alto right now, but I'm planning a trip to Disneyland, I should be able to search for Disneyland, and it should tell me, here's what all my friends did, here's the photos they took, and my friends of friends. And I should be able to take one click and ask them which ride worked really well, what food did you eat when you were there. Like all this information is going to change search dramatically. Right now when we're searching on the web, it's basically the best of. We're about to make it massively personalized.
So if I am then, to further the metaphor, in Disneyland at the moment, can I see the path through Disneyland taken by people that I trust?
Yep.
Cool.
And like Disney should somehow sponsor that, but we'll figure that out.
Well, so if you think about the scale of this and you think about what it opens up with us as social beings, now insert marketers. How do they play in this world?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's been amazing is we're just listening to this conversation, just watching some of the webcasts. I think it's marketers know what they want. They kind of know the demographic, they know information they're looking for, but none of this information has been really made available in a simple way. And I think Google did an amazing job with AdWords. It was very simplistic. If you're looking for this specific word in this demographic, serve me ads. So I think it should work in the exact same way. I think marketers should be able to go to a web page and tell us what they're looking for, and we'll give them the idea of where those ads will be displayed or where that information is going to be displayed.
In other words, you're sort of turning the model and saying, we as consumers, once we understand the path of the world we're going to be taking, will invite marketers into that path because we understand they'll add value to it.
Absolutely. And I think, for example, one of the things we were testing, one of the versions of our software did a really basic thing. It just said, like, if I'm in Manhattan, it would pull up, it would just like be a pop-up that says Manhattan or Brooklyn. And of course, people like telling machines are wrong, so people would always click. It says Manhattan. Then it would say, because it knows what time of day it is, it goes lunch, coffee, nothing. And then you tap in lunch. By the way, this is no typing, just clicking. It's just like playing multiple choice. Think about how much information you just gave us. We know who you're with, we know the time of the day, we know where you're located, and you told us what you want. So I think we're just beginning to understand how location and proximity with other people and who you're with impacts purchasing decisions and marketing. We're just beginning of collecting this data. One of the folks that we brought on was the chief scientist of LinkedIn. So a month and a half before his public offering, he was willing to leave LinkedIn to join us. We are building, we think, the Manhattan Project of data. It's pretty awesome. And the information that we're going to be able to display to consumers, we think is really important because we believe that the more that information is available to consumers, the more transparency is available. They make better choices. They become better marketers for us because one of the things that we believe is that our customers, consumers now are the distribution mechanism. Before you run some ads and people would buy your products and that was the end of the relationship. Now it's basically people advertise for you. And I think it's funny because there's a Boolean language, nerd term, but you're telling everyone how to find this.
Right.
That's kind of crazy. Like, we shouldn't have to do that, right? But that's an example of how the audience here is the marketing for this venue. That's going to be incredibly implicit. And the amount of information we will throw out will be just enormous compared to today. And so we're trying to harness that information without you having to enter anything into the phone because the phone is collecting all that information all the time.
The consumer is the distributor, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they are the distribution.
The consumer is the medium.
Mm-hmm.
McLuhan would be proud.
Yeah.
Aren't you maybe a little early?
I don't know, I got a lot of capital. I'll figure it out.
I've never heard a more Silicon Valley term in my life. I got a lot of capital. We'll figure it out.
Well, I think it's like one of those things where, Apple to me, if you're a nerd, like I was telling the folks at Apple, like when I was a kid, I dreamed about working at Apple. Like that's all I ever wanted to do when I was a kid. So I didn't think I was good enough, so I just kind of joked with Steve and those guys, like, since I wasn't good enough to work at Apple, I just thought I might as well just be Steve Jobs. I'll just, go build something. And, when I was there, it was amazing to see, and I was so happy, and the projects we worked on were incredible. But when he started talking about this post-PC world, like I finally got it. Like it's, right now we sit in front of a browser, and it has no idea who we are. It has no clue. And it allows us to be really terrible people. It allows us to say mean things. It allows us to take a picture of our penis and post it on Twitter. And,
I can't actually keep it. I mean, there's
I know,
so many
hard.
of them.
It's like, it's really, really bad. And I think that level of transparency that once people start realizing, oh my gosh, my information is available, and making it really clear to them how that information is available and how the information is being used, it's going to be transformative. I think Zuck is absolutely right in terms of where they're headed. And it's a paradigm shift that's very hard for a lot of companies to understand that they're competitors to them. Or they don't even know they're competitors to them yet, but they are, because in the end, we're all looking for information, right? It's all basically search. And so when with Yahoo, we used to have librarians that tell us what to browse, and then Google came with a better mousetrap, so it was machines, and now it's swung back. Now your friends are telling you. So we're going to add a little bit of machine learning on top of friends. That's our mission. That's our science project. And we think it's a very, very hard project. We think it takes a lot of computing power that wasn't required in the past.
Now, you and I spoke of this before, and I wanted to bring it up again. What you're doing in terms of adding a layer of, as you put it, machine learning, or the ability to instrument and understand the nuance of proximity-based social networks, or what I might say, sort of shifting the time axis of social, such that, for example, you can say, oh, I had dinner with this person 8 months ago, and those other 8 people, I'm going to have dinner with one of them next week. That's good for me to remember.
Yeah.
Isn't this what Facebook should be doing? Aren't you
Yeah,
kind
they
of
should.
doing Mark Zuckerberg's job for him?
Sure, I think we're a guinea pig, and if we do a good job, he'll copy us, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's, but it's this.
Well, some folks have seen what happens, and it's not always pretty.
We've always been really, really good at building stuff, and we let the chips fall where they may. At the end of the day, we believe in innovation, and that's the company. I mean, literally, the company is made up of 2 places. Everyone is from either Google or Apple, and we've spent our entire lives doing this cloud stuff and this kind of portability stuff, and we're trying to blend them together in a way that's meaningful. I think that, I hope Facebook does this. I really do, because I think that having this information with me, and not just all of my friends, but the people I'm with at the moment, and helping me understand them better and helping me communicate with them better. To me, it's like, it's no different than, you know, selling drinks. It's just social lubricant. It just gets people to be able to talk to each other in a more compelling way. And if we're good at that, I think there's a lot of opportunities for us and plenty of competition.
When you first launched, and we're just about out of time, if anyone has a question for Bill, please raise your hand, the mic will come to you. When you first launched, people didn't understand what it was you were doing and pretty much thought it was like a social photo sharing application that didn't work.
Yeah.
Because the only way it worked was if people took pictures with each other
50 feet.
Within a certain radius, exactly. And not that many people actually did do that. And so people thought, well, there was a photo app. We've seen a lot of photo sharing apps, right? That one didn't work, but it has $41 million. Maybe it has 40 million now. Done, let's go look at the next shiny object. But you clearly have a much bigger idea in mind.
We're doing some, it's funny because, like, I think the people that are in this space, whether it's, you know, the Facebooks or the Twitters or the Googles, they know what we're doing. And they understand the relevance of this technology. It's a very hard problem to solve. But I think if we solve it, it's a significant difference in the marketplace. And I think it's going to make advertising more valuable to consumers because it won't be guessing. You know, it's like when I'm at a restaurant with my friends, I don't want to be pitched by the restaurant 5 blocks down. Like, I mean, we're going to get to a level of relevance that's just unimaginable compared to what we have today. And if we're able to do that, that's going to help people communicate. It's going to help people remember. It's going to help people have more fun, and, you know, and hopefully it'll, you know, return some capital for our shareholders.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Bill, for coming. Appreciate it.